Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where six mates unpack three topics over a new drink each week. Fuck it, just go with that. We'll fix it if it's...
Cheers. Cheers. Happy Friday, lads. Bad luck. Bad luck, Hato. Yeah. Alright, so what we're drinking today, gentlemen? Champagne. One of my favourite drinks, 95 calories a glass. And you all know that I'm a fucking fat wanker.
There you go.
So Henri Abele is what we're drinking. It's become my favourite these days, and Angelica, Nora and Scott Wilson got me onto it probably about a year ago. It's from the third oldest house of Champagne in France, behind the big ones. So
nice.
You can get access to it at the Restore over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was an avid Verve drinker. That's now my favourite.
This is much nicer than the...
Yeah, 100%.
In my opinion, obviously.
It's better than Rick
That's just...
Yeah, so Angelica, there's your shout out. Thank you very much. We'll put some links there somewhere around the place, I guess.
We will.
Love your work. Keep giving me freebies and I'll shout you out.
It is tasty. Very tasty.
Do you normally serve your champagne at room temperature,
No,
Conrad?
mate, it's been in the fridge all day. It's been in the fridge all day.
Put some ice with that.
Fucking hell, mate. Seriously.
Do you cycle your fridge on and off to save power?
Save a few cents.
Alright.
Oh, that's up.
Moving on.
Let's
Moving
go.
on. Have I got it right? Have I got it right? Let me just... Oh, yeah, okay. Angelica said, yeah, well, Moe and Verve are shit, so no problems.
Oh, jeez, just throwing it out there.
Right.
Verve used to be your favourite.
Verve used to be my favourite. She knows that. So Restore Liquor Barons. Go grab it. Henri Abele, very well worth a try, especially with the festive season on fastly approaching.
What do you like about it?
I love champagne full stop, right? And I think it's just the vibrancy and the refreshing drink of it. And the bonus is the calories. That's the bonus.
Or the lack thereof.
The lack
so
The lack
lower
thereof.
calories.
Yeah, lower calories compared to beers and wines.
Yeah, but some champagnes can be really high as well, right? Depends on their dosage.
Oh,
There we
Bloody
go.
hell.
And what price point are you looking at for this?
I can't tell you because I haven't paid for it.
5 fingers?
Slightly.
No, and I'll say this, if Angelica is listening,
5 fingers.
she did leave a case here. She hasn't invoiced me. So Scott and Angelica, if you have to invoice me, feel free. If not, thank you very much.
You can pass on that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I didn't realise we were plugging things.
Yeah.
Why not, mate?
Yeah, well, far out.
Brought to you by.
Yeah, to all our one listeners.
Alright,
out
so-
there.
Well, I'll be getting asked when we're actually putting it up.
Yeah,
So
I was wondering.
this
about
is
that
the
as
second. This is the second one we're doing.
I'll be getting
Episode
asked too.
This is episode 2.
Episode 2.
Hassling every few days, I think.
Well, we're waiting on you because you're doing
Oh,
the
me?
intro. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, there we go. It's my
well.
fault.
Oh, we've got our shit sorted.
Well, I did ask Andrew to try and tee it up with you today.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
Okay,
Shall
so
we start this again?
no, we're fine. We'll
I'm
go.
joking.
We're fine. I mean, we've got content today provided by. Oh, you go first.
Justin.
I'm not
So
necessarily
Justin,
going first.
Marco,
Yeah.
and Michael. Oh,
And me.
oh, right. Well, you throw on the other side of the table. Jeez, I feel like we're going to be grilled here, Michael.
Could be.
Hey?
Could be.
Crispy.
It could be. All right. So we're starting.
I don't know whether we came up with it or not. I mean, I'm happy to go first.
Go for it.
If the...
I'm not sure. I really want to pick yours up right now.
Well, let's ease into it.
Yeah.
Let's not ease into it.
Oh my God! I think too
Okay,
much on the
let
table.
me ease into it. So what? Because I think let's get warmed up. And just looking over at some notes here, well, this could be an interesting podcast. So to warm up, I think we had a conversation at the end of the last podcast that started to sort of revolved around if we could invite one person to sit down with us for a couple of hours and have a chat, dead or alive. Who would that person be, and why? And I at the time I mentioned Winston Churchill, who I'm very fond of from what I've read and what I know about the man. And
Great
what he-
cigars.
He's got great cigars. I think great showman when he needed to be. Very stoic in the fact that he got knocked down many times and just kept going and just knew what he was, his purpose and what he wanted to do with his life and what he felt towards
One of the
his
great
country.
leaders, though, right? I mean,
One of the great leaders, and also I think one of the few people that has really probably almost personally faced the leadership role looking at almost somewhat of the destruction of the world and that at the time. I know there's a fair bit going on as he was a leader. So I thought he was absolutely amazing, and that's who I guess I voted for at the time. But also then thereafter, I had a couple of interesting thoughts around. We've shared some content about Jim Carrey, and he's a very interesting dude as well. And
he's with us right now.
He could be with us right now. He most likely is with us right now, and I guess perhaps he could be with us in the future. So on my ponder, I thought it might be interesting to catch someone who it could actually happen. He's still alive that I'm aware of. And so they were the two that I came up with, and I just think we had a really robust conversation around a handful of really, really interesting people. Robust.
And we agree on, because we posed the question of for the benefit of the six of us in the room.
Yeah.
Did we end up? We didn't.
I don't think we ended up agreeing
on a single
individual. I don't think we
didn't
agree. Bruce Lee did come close. Sorry, Marco.
Mate, you just blew it.
That's all right.
I was excited to reveal mine. I'm super proud.
We didn't say Bruce Lee. Marco,
Well,
who would you like to?
Oh, great question, Conrad. Thank you.
Just sit over my desk.
Yeah. My answer was Bruce Lee, mainly because he changed a art form and a way of life, right? So he saw something that was accepted by everyone, disagreed with it, went about creating his own version of it, and converting a huge amount of people because they saw that he was being true to the essence of what the martial art and that way of life stood for.
Would you call him a philosopher?
Absolutely.
You do not think putting that label on him limits or shortchanges him for what he actually has done? Because a lot of philosophers haven't really done a lot other than philosophise and theorise, right? But he's done more.
Sure, but I just don't think that if you call someone a philosopher, it doesn't mean that they can't be other things, right? So I think he was in part definitely a philosopher. Much more so than, being extremely fit, essentially, right? So he just had such deep control over his body and understanding of that physiological sense. But then the mental aspect of him was just as deep, which I struggle to find anyone that has gone to the depths of both sides. And that's why.
Physical.
This week we've talked about Tim Grover a lot, right? I've shared that content with you. Now the people that he's worked with, when you talk from a physiological side, you're talking about the Jordans and the Kobe's and the mental and the physiological side, which is what they were working on. Do you not think that they exist? Is it just because you haven't enough philosophy out of them?
The question is, did Michael Jordan change? So I don't know this because I don't know much about Michael Jordan, right? I know a little bit, but did he change basketball and the way that it was played?
Well,
right?
I mean, the way he's been framed.
Or did he redefine it, right? Because
true,
Bruce
okay.
Lee redefined martial arts.
Yeah. But the issue that they've tabled is that he's the GOAT, right? He's the greatest of all time. That's what generally is the consensus. Yeah. Being a Lakers man, I categorically hated him whilst he was playing because you just couldn't like the East Coast.
Well, I think you could say he redefined it in a lot of ways if you're talking on Jordan, because he was one of the first ones to actually really get in the gym, for example, and do things very differently. So I think. And
he also became the first athlete to acquire a franchise, right?
Yeah, and other things. I mean, look, he started in movies and did all sorts of things with his brand. But coming back to, I guess, huge amounts. Like the intelligence to the first person we've ever really seen take a line away from like one of the major sneaker labels. I mean, that was a huge decision at the time.
I think I was just reframing it on the sense, well, we haven't seen it, but have we?
Coming back to Bruce Lee, my question that I would pose to you is are we not just talking about mental rather than physical? Because if they're mastering the mental state, that's what he's done and brought to his physical state.
Sorry, who? Bruce Lee?
If we're going, just to circle back to Bruce Lee, like you said, you think he's mastered, both mental and physical behaviours, and I agree with you. But don't you think that the driver is that mental state, and he used that to then master his body?
Yeah, I guess you would say that he wouldn't have separated the two, right? So you would have thought in order to go deep in one, you needed to be deep in the other, right? I think that's how he put it, and I separated them, but clearly I'm not Bruce Lee. So.
We can call you Bruce.
Yeah, please.
We can call you Santiago. We can call you anything.
Yeah, Mitch.
You're gonna have to beat a lot on this video or this.
No, I'm just going to change the classification to explicit.
I think what you were saying, Matt, was that the physical could never have come at all without the mental. The mental would have to be firmly in place before
the mental has to be firmly in
place.
place.
And to dominate the physical, if you want, for want of a better word, it needs to be a mental. The mental needs to be the seed for it.
Yeah. I think we could all agree that mental, it starts there.
Yeah.
And I just don't know enough about other people to want to couch someone. But for me, Bruce Lee comes to mind straight away.
Do you know much about his family or his background in regards to how he grew up and stuff? So I know of him obviously, and I've read a little bit about him. But like his real background, like his dad, his mum, who they were, what they did.
No. I've read.
So that'd be interesting because that's where it all comes from. Yeah, it's from the parents. I think genetically it is there, but that first 4 years of your life defines kind of who you are. So it'd be really interesting to see how that first 4 years looked for a little mini Bruce Lee. Wonder what it was, where he was. Hong Kong, would I say?
He was Hong Kong.
Hong Kong.
Michael.
Well, jokingly last week I said Genghis Khan. And I'll stick with that one because that was the first one that came into my head last week.
And another great leader.
Yeah.
Fearful.
Yeah. And he probably related, or probably Bruce Lee probably related to him because I think a third of the Chinese population has some form of genetic makeup from Genghis Khan because of how he swept through China.
Really?
Yes, a third of the
They're all
Chinese
related?
population. Yeah, because of the rape and pillage that he did, pretty much the rape and pillage he did through that region. But he was. I don't know if you've ever listened to Dan Carlin's
Hardcore history.
Stuff on Genghis Khan's ridiculous. And the kid was there's so many little fables about when he was a kid. I can't remember the thing about the heart. It was like he was given like the heart of something when he was a kid, and that was like. I can't remember. I won't even go into that. But I just think somebody like that, somebody is ferocious and just do.
I'm not sure we can put him in this room.
I was going to say this. That's the thing.
So what do you want?
Do you want us to be consumed?
So what do you want from him being in the room?
I just want to see what he's going to do. So
No, but legitimately, right? So I was just thinking, okay, it's nice to just sit here and talk about who we bring in the room, but then, why would you bring him in the room? Which I don't know if I necessarily have a great answer for just yet. So I'd be interested if any of you guys would know what you would ask, or why you'd want.
I think it's interchangeable as well. Like if we were to sit here and go, okay, in 3 months we ask ourselves the same question. I think you'd pick a different individual.
You could probably do that, yeah.
Because I think you would.
I'm not sure I would.
Sure?
I can understand why you could.
Yeah, I would be in a similar boat to you. I still don't really know who I would choose. Because whatever's showing up in your period of time or whoever you're exposed to in that period as well, is into what value you may want to get out of it. If it's not going to change, who would be yours then? I'd be really curious. Who's your one
Jesus
person?
Christ! I said I wanted to get Jesus in here.
With Genghis at the same time.
Oh, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. And
I'm here, thanks.
let's change his name again.
Santiago, Jesus,
Bruce.
Yes.
And that's for me. That's the top line for me, right? Any question I want to have asked, that would be who I would ask it of, from a living perspective.
He's had a lot of history since he was born and died. Yeah. So he's been formed because of that history. So the person that actually gets here. Is it the Jesus that's in your head, or is it just some poor bloke from Monty Python that's sort of going,
Well,
I'm a pretty good bloke.
We'd find out. You'd find out. But I guess when you're listening to the stories, can we listen to stories? The Bible's a book of stories.
Yeah.
They're interesting situations, and to find that much philosophy, and the storytelling that can actually be applied to this day. I find that remarkable.
What language would he have spoken?
Yeah, good question. I don't know.
Okay.
He spoke in tongues apparently. He did speak a few languages.
Yeah.
Jumping back to the Jim Carrey thing, which is quite interesting, that little 5-6 minute video that he's got about colour. He's got that little documentary. I actually posted it, but you can have it again. But he paints faces.
He's painting that picture
and
that was in that conversation.
And you can
see, notice?
but you can also see, like, if you look deeply into a face of Jesus Christ, in most of the images, you can see most races.
No, that's what they say,
through the face. So what would he be? Well, I mean, there's obviously quite a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm not saying God, right? I mean, God's a whole different scenario for me. But the tangible person in Jesus Christ, I'd love to be around.
Wow.
Why? Because I just get to ask questions.
If we could ask
No,
Michael J. Fox.
I think that's what I'm interested in, right? So, like, what questions would you ask?
What question? I would love to know, because I mean, the Catholic Church and Christianity is predicated on the belief of the rising of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Mate, that's the first question I'd ask.
How could he rise for a jumper?
I would ask.
You see a picture of him like Michael Jordan, silhouette.
Yeah.
Did you rise from the dead?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he comes to a meeting and he's dead, the chance that he did, right?
His answer would be yes, I'm here.
I'm here, I'm here, mate. Stupid question. Ask stupid question, you get stupid answers. But that would be it.
You want to know that because
the entire Christian faith is based on it.
Yeah, but like, what's it to you?
What's it to me?
Yeah.
It's just validate. It is validation of a belief that I've had.
Yeah.
But are you? I mean, I'm not being.
And not that I'm seeking validation, but that's what I would ask.
Yeah. But do you actually believe he did? There was a human being that actually did rise from the dead.
I believe metaphorically a rising happened. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we're getting religious here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dangerous one.
Well,
No, it's not.
No, we're fine.
yeah. I mean, I'm safe. I'm talking to you guys, but that's what I believe. You know, I think the Bible is a book of stories, and it's how it's interpreted.
And it's also, like you say, stories.
Yeah.
And because we don't have the benefit of people running around with video cameras and we've got complete, we literally have the written word of
Daily
stories
Jesus.
of certain people's perspectives. Yeah, the Daily Jesus. It's a vlog.
It's phenomenal.
Imagine that.
I would love to share with you guys at some stage, a reading from one of the disciples, and then the interpretation of that reading by a very learned scholar person. That you can see what they were trying to do.
It's the interpretation, though, isn't it? Because all of the stories have been interpreted multiple times over the years.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese whisperers type scenario, from different languages.
But when you read something being interpreted, then you have a train of thought that was never open to you before.
Yep.
And so when you have that train of thought open, then you can start applying some of your own magic to it.
Yeah.
And that to me is where reading things like sacred text and reading the way it's been interpreted by certain people, then going back and rereading it and allowing yourself. Now, I studied English literature at high school, and this is the only time I've actually used it, is in reading the Bible.
So,
Justin.
Look, I think I'm in a similar boat. My initial gut when we just talked about it was Marcus Aurelius, because I've been, I guess,
fair call,
reading a lot about that.
You've read a lot about him.
Yeah, and I've never been an individual to look to people and all that other stuff as well, so sporting and all that. I would be like you, Marco, where from recent readings, Bruce is really intriguing. The fact of, I think if we could agree on an individual, what I was going to contribute, just to wrap up with Bruce, because to me, like, thinking about Bruce, when, like, you start as a white belt, and as you start knowing nothing, and then Bruce's philosophy is that you actually end up knowing nothing.
Yeah, but you are a martial artist, right?
Yeah, and I'm a martial artist as well, so I did Taekwondo for many years too. But what I loved about Bruce's philosophy in some theories was like that you get to a state of not knowing again.
Yeah.
But you know everything without knowing everything to some degree, which is like.
But that's complete.
Correct. Which is, I think, in order to answer the question of like if we would agree on someone, that could be a great philosophy that could have a lot of contribution to this kind of show. Is that at the end of the day, right? We're calling this simple minds, and we should be trying to simplify whatever it is. And Bruce's whole philosophy was simplicity.
Be like water.
Be like water. The champagne glass is not full or half empty.
It's neither.
It's neither. Or it's both.
Yeah, well, it's both.
It's both. And so I think, when Bruce was brought up, I love the...
Not champagne, by the way.
It's beautiful.
Thanks, Angelica and Scott.
Getting going.
There's a buttery taste in it.
I'm going to pay for this, man.
But yin yang, at the end of the day, everything
Yeah.
comes around. Love it. And I think, it'd be one of those two people. I can't really pinpoint someone. Listening a lot of Jim Carrey, Tim Grover this week.
Yeah.
Oh, solid week.
What Jim Carrey
Solidly
last weekend, he's got
content.
You got time to consume content?
Mate, I listened to this last week. He said to me last night, I got over from training and I'm listening to this Tim Grover for an hour and 20. I got to bed at 10:40, my eyes going ping!
I was working
Not
out
before
myself.
bed. That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You don't get any sleep.
I've got a good bit of content to share that actually links to a lot of this.
Yeah, did we do it
so,
again?
Yeah.
Love it.
So I went in research of my second favourite quote, first being Bruce Lee's One About Water.
Do you go to quotes, mate?
Yeah, following your quotes last week.
You should start an Instagram account.
What is your Insta
So
handle?
good. No, I should. And
JC. At JC.
And yeah, I lost my train of thought now. So I went looking for something and found an article by a guy called Paul Jun, and it's called Marcus Aurelius on Asking the Impossible, and it's a really interesting read.
You circulate that for us?
Sorry.
You'll give it
Yeah,
to us.
well, we'll put the link in the show notes.
Show notes. We're getting
I've
fancy.
listened to enough podcasts to know how to say that, right? And it's a really good read, and it looks at, we were just talking about stories, right? So it looks at the stories that people fabricate to understand, like make sense of the chaos that essentially is just the world, right? So essentially, you can take the perspective that everything's just random anyway, and we just fabricate stories to understand it, create meaning, and we often, that's where a lot of the emotion that we have and how we react to things is because of the stories that we construct. So it looks at stripping all of that back and learning to deal with, you know, the reactions that you have to certain things, like people being obsessed with Bitcoin, or
We're going there.
yeah. Or like, you know,
Where's
other
it at?
professional coaches that we may not agree with, right? Like, it just says, why are you spending time worrying about that stuff, antagonizing or investing emotional energy on that?
Because somebody's
It doesn't
told you
matter.
something,
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway. Does it affect you? Yes or no? And then carry on. So it's a really cool read from that.
And the
perspective.
quote is?
The quote. So it's 3 paragraphs. It'll take me maybe a minute to read.
No wonder I
But
haven't got to it. I can put that on the
and
Instagram
I'd
page.
love to unpack this one with you guys. It's by Marcus Aurelius, and he goes, to the standbys above, add this one, always to define whatever it is we perceive, to trace its outlines so we can see what it really is, its substance, stripped bare as a whole, unmodified, and to call it by its name, the thing itself, and its components, to which it will eventually return. Nothing is so conducive to spiritual growth as this capacity for logical and accurate analysis of everything that happens to us. To look at it in such a way that we understand what need it fulfills and in what kind of world, and its value to that world as a whole and to man in particular, as a citizen of that higher city of which all other cities are mere households. What is it? This thing that now forces itself onto my notice. What is it made up of? How long was it designed to last? And what qualities do I need to bring to bear on it? Tranquility, courage, honesty, trustworthiness, straightforwardness, independence, or what? So in each case you need to say, this is due to God, or this is due to the interweavings and intertwinings of fate, to coincidence or chance, or this is due to human being, someone of the same race, the same birth, the same society, but who doesn't know what nature requires of him? But I do. And so I'll treat them as the law that binds us, the law of nature requires, with kindness and with justice, and in inconsequential things, I'll do my best to treat them as they deserve. So I've printed that out so you guys can have a look through it, right?
Marcus Aurelius, beast mode.
That is
That is in beast mode.
there, and I keep going back to that and finding new things.
His stuff is just,
Yeah.
you could literally just have Marcus Aurelius as what you read for the next couple of years and you would be fine. Yeah, there's so much depth and questions.
But I'm coming back to this a lot.
And it's good. Oh, I don't see why. Well, there's that much in there.
So this is where your sort of stories idea came from. So instead of being your perception or being told something about whatever, and you just take that as gospel. It's like stopping, questioning, looking, analysing more about sort of any situation, be it a situation, an object, a desire, whatever it is. Sort of stripping it down to just try to think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because a big thing that we continue to come back to is being a student in every situation, right?
It's what's got me back to where I needed to get to this week.
Yeah. And this quote is just layer upon layer of just continually going back to being like, what is this trying to teach me? And it's something that you can very easily turn anything shit into positive using this kind of approach. And then the article talks about how you can go about doing that, which is no easy feat, right? But
Takes training.
one thing that I just don't understand from this quote is, as a citizen of that higher city, of which all other cities are mere households.
So this is where they're talking, I believe this is where they're talking about what they would believe in back in those days as heaven and hell, or that's what I believe that's referring to, that higher place.
I suppose he's saying that's your...
But there's a reference to God there, right? So he's acknowledging that God exists.
Yeah.
And
so a higher city to me is exactly what
he's
talking
saying.
about.
Once you hit that level of being able to break down situations, you are in that higher place, yeah? So you're not part of the normal day-to-day household.
As a citizen of that high city, where you're in that state.
Is it also though referencing of like literally where, because he refers further down as this is due to being a human being, right? He just strips away what we are.
You talk about so human beings would be in the mere household part?
Yeah, as a citizen of that higher self, because if you're familiar with Stoicism, they refer to the logos, the universe, things are just happening because they are happening.
Yeah.
So therefore, as a citizen of the logos or the universe, every other city or conflict or people that look to these lower
it makes sense.
they're just mere households, meaning your neighbours, your friends, your family, your next door neighbour. I'm starting to look at it as once you're at that level, we're all just humans. Whether you're different, you've got a different religion, you're a slave, because at that time they had slaves, or you're whatever, because if we know with Marcus as well, he never looked to these individuals as that either. He wasn't someone to necessarily... anyway, that's some of my interpretation potentially of what that... as a citizen of that higher city, potentially...
But that middle paragraph to me just opens up massive questions, right?
Oh, yeah.
What is it, this thing that now forces itself onto my notice?
Attention.
Nothing is so conducive to...
what's taking up your attention and why?
That is my favourite sentence.
You've got to work back. That is the killer sentence. Nothing is so conducive to spiritual growth as this capacity for logical and accurate analysis of everything that happens to us. And then if you read forward...
But it's funny though, when you speak spirituality, logic doesn't appear.
I mean, logical back then can mean... I mean, logical now compared to logical back then. And this is where the English language can...
Yeah, so that'll be interesting, because logic does not exist when you talk about spirituality, because you can't answer every question verbatim.
Okay.
And that's
interesting. I hadn't considered that.
And that's where the faith path comes in.
Yep.
And that's having faith and having the belief.
But he's actually saying spiritual growth really comes from you being more analytical and logical in any situation.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, but if you debate,
but
I hear what you're saying, and I know what that's saying. But it's funny how right now, when you put the scientist and a religious person in a room, they will never agree on most topics.
Yeah.
But you can you not be logical and spiritual, or you're saying that there's literally...
Well, he's saying you can.
Yeah,
he's saying
he's saying there is a clear
in the
black and white.
same thought, in the same conversation, or
Yeah, I'm extremely logical, okay, but I do have a belief in a faith.
Yeah, so you're extremely spiritual as well.
Yeah. But if you try to get me to validate either, it's very hard to do. It's not impossible.
And the bigger piece that this quote ties into is saying...
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no. And
I've read a lot of this shit, and I have never seen it.
Have you read Meditations?
Yeah, I've read it, but I guess when it stands out, when I say read it stands out and it comes out to you. So you brought it down.
This stands out to me because the question that the kind of things that I keep coming back to at the moment is, I'm trying to always frame it as I'm in control, right? So either I can change the situation. If I can't change the situation, then it's something that I can control my emotions about, right? And then you can go to, Man's Search for Meaning, that whole, you're always in control of your thoughts and you always have that, right? And so this thing here gives me a tool for controlling my emotions over a situation, right? Because by putting myself in the position of learning about what's happening to me, why is it happening, what can I get from it, what's the benefit to me,
Even
though
logical,
on the surface,
analytical,
that's where this right side of that, I'm in control of the situation or in control of my emotions. That's how I unpack that one. So that's kind of why I shared it. And I was thinking, do you guys ever get the sense that anyone's really complaining about anything that they're, essentially that they're complaining? No. But I notice a lot in chatting to people, say about like my part-time setup or whatever. They're like, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, well, yeah, you could. You're in control of your thing, right? Yeah. So, and don't like resent it because there are choices that you're making that then make you believe and construct that story that you have to do things.
So they're getting carried along by the emotional story
so,
and staying on that path and not questioning at all. Yeah,
and it's just at the front of my mind a lot with a lot of those conversations.
So you say front of your mind, is this anywhere in your proximity on a day-to-day basis?
No. So currently no, but there was a time where maybe a month ago I was, just like I did with my Bruce Lee water quote, I was reading this like one sentence a night and then just memorizing the next sentence on each night, just as a way to like decompress and to just kind of put myself to sleep. But I think I got to like, what is it made up of? And then had stopped memorizing it. But
that's a really good hack, and it's sort of weird. Like if you can read a few pages of Marcus Aurelius, right?
Yeah.
But you're better reading one sentence over and over.
Can I just come back to this piece, right? So in each case, you need to say this is due to God, or this is due to the interweavings and intertwinings of fate, to coincidence or chance, or this is due to a human being.
Yeah. So
he's acknowledging a difference in people, yeah. There's people in different levels of.
But and for me, tying it back to the article that this was sitting in, it's you can people construct stories around, say that someone cuts them off in traffic, right? You know, they construct a story around them being an asshole. Really, it's just inconsequential.
Yeah.
You're in peak hour. Why are you expecting the impossible?
This wasn't in Meditations, right? I'm telling you this now.
No, this is in Meditations. That's how I came across this, because every morning I journal on a quote,
so
and I came across this, and I was like, holy shit. Yeah.
That traffic one is something I do on a daily basis, because I still find myself getting angry at the person up my arse. And then I will stop, analyse, be logical, and go, wave at them. Nothing I can do.
I do that purposely these days. I wave at them.
Yeah.
Everyone, wave at them. I thank everyone.
Because all you're doing is letting them control your emotion.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
so you might as well be happy.
I mean, that's a modern day version of, this is due to the interweavings and intertwinings of fate, to coincidence of chance, right?
Mm-hmm. But this is due to a human being. Now, is he
but there's a back end to that as well, right?
Yeah.
So there's also, there's one
some of the same race, the same birth.
But with kindness and with justice, and in inconsequential things, it's not a very easy quote to read, but and in inconsequential things, I'll do my best to treat them as they deserve. So if it's things just are, right? So this is trying to teach you, don't attach a story to everything. Things just are. That's it. No, they're not good, they're not bad, they just are. Be indifferent.
Be like water.
But that's where you
wanted to say that. Bruce, you wanted to say that.
Yeah, we're going to go to the Bruce Lee quote another episode, right? That's another 15 minutes.
Marcus Aurelius, we could have a whole podcast series.
I'm shocked. I literally am shocked. I have not seen this or noticed it.
It's okay, I'm happy to teach you, Colin.
I'm just shocked. I'm pleasantly shocked.
What story is he telling himself?
That he thought he had the awareness to pick this quote out when you
No, I'm pleasantly shocked. But clearly, because it's too long and no pictures in that book that I got.
But Meditations is an intense book. I mean,
it's full on.
And it depends where you're at the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll pick out certain things that are relevant as well as you're reading anything.
Yeah, thanks.
No.
I really like this I think anyone who's familiar with this stuff, this is fascinating in the fact that...
Fascinating.
Well, it is because...
Justin Bourne, fascinating.
I'm fascinated in that when you actually...
How old are you, Justin?
Huh?
How old are you? For
27.
everyone. 27. So a 27-year-old, to use the word fascinating, talking about Marcus Aurelius. Can we get some context?
Why context?
This
You're
is
looking for an
abnormal.
amen?
This is
He's got a Brad Dad moment going on right now.
I really do.
Yeah.
Isn't the word fascinating quite normal? Or is it...
Not in the context of talking about Marcus Aurelius from a 27-year-old.
Yeah, I suppose. But he's a deep thinker, you know, and I think we all are, and we all try to be, and this is what we're trying to say. You've got to think deeper on everything.
Yeah, maybe I'm excited.
I'm just trying to make a point to whoever wants to listen to this
Sure.
stuff. If this stuff is not age, biased.
Yeah.
It's meaning biased. If you're looking for meaning, you're gonna get a chance.
Yeah.
By reading some of this
It's
stuff.
a good observation. It's a good point because I think where I was getting why
So
I am
drop a mic, walk out,
fascinated.
get
Yeah,
boom.
is the fact that this is a good summary of really what it is. It's like the first kind of paragraph is perspective. The next part is then why is it showing up for me? What is it?
Why have you noticed it?
Yeah, what is it? What is it made?
Like not seeing it.
What is it made up of? How long was it designed to last? As we know, pain is temporary and suffering is temporary for whatever it is. So how long is this designed to last? A second, an hour, or whatever? And what does the qualities that do I need to bring to bear on it? Which is then a question of going, I mean, what do I learn from this? What do I need to change? What is my responsibility in this situation? And then obviously goes on to then kind of, this is my takeaway of like, this is a great find in that it's really a summary to some degree of those things. That's my takeaway.
I'm going to start the last chat piece for the show because I'm going to nick out and get the other bottle.
Okay.
So I'll start it. I'll come back in.
Is this the third question?
You start.
You're starting.
Isn't
I'm
it
going to start. I'm introducing
I mean,
Justin with the topic.
Right. That was a super smooth segue.
Apparently I'm in charge
Oh,
today.
you realise you were the right
I
button.
forgot you were in charge.
That's just a human being.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, if you could introduce Justin.
Justin, what do you got to chat about?
Well, do you want to do the top up and?
I'll go grab one.
Ye citizen of the higher city, you.
The last paragraph's essentially just giving you all of the broad answers, right? It's due to something, right? And a cheeky kind of ending of like, it's probably inconsequential.
Yeah. But that's the homework for anybody listening to this, that one person that's bought the champagne.
Yeah.
Get some Marcus Aurelius and start reading because it's...
This article is a real cool introduction to Stoicism, actually, because it's got some Epictetus quotes in there as well.
Epictetus?
So I would, and it's only 4 pages, right? Including that quote.
Who put it together? Who's the...
It's a guy called Paul Jun, and actually I think he put it together in 2014.
Why am I having a
something
groundhog
like that.
moment?
Oh, what?
I've heard that name twice already. I feel like I've recycled
Don't
back.
break that.
We're just waiting for you to
We were waiting. Sorry.
pop
I
the
thought,
champagne.
Alright.
No, go for it.
That was a good question, Mark.
Yeah, it's a great quote. Love it.
Bring fire.
Big fire.
Hashtag fascinating.
Hashtag 27-year-old fascinated.
27.
Oh, true.
Sorry, did
I'm fascinated.
I harm you with that statement?
No, I'm just fascinated that you find that word fascinating.
Moving on.
Moving on. So I thought there's so many topics I want to talk about, right? Are you gonna pop that?
Yeah, you can keep talking. I'm not aiming at your head.
You did that before.
I did try to keep that in my hand.
There's a lot there.
You're terrible at that.
All good.
It's okay.
We just
Anyway.
took out a light. We're all safe. We're
The studio
fine.
is safe.
Yeah, we're all under control.
Beauty.
So look, I don't know about you, Marco or Matt, but I struggled to. There's so many things I'd love to talk about. This
Lots of
week in
podcasts
particular.
coming up.
Oh, there's lots of podcasts, and I was tossing between 2. This one was a thing that I've been sitting for about a week and a half, and if not longer, and it's come and flowed over the last 12 to 18 months as well.
And then there was another one of passion, which was brought up yesterday, which was a good discussion as well, but we'll save that one. So the thing that I wanted to bring and talk about is imposter syndrome, or feeling like a fraud.
Can you define that?
So I can define that.
He's got paper in front of him. I'm sure
Yeah,
he
well, I
can.
thought
Human beings.
before I define that, part of the reason that it came up and I wanted to talk about it was that I believe, and to some degree, that this is true. We've all experienced it, and we will experience it. And what I'm curious, the question of why I want to bring it up is like, when have you experienced it? How did you overcome it? And then how do you marry it with like when you overcome it, of then balancing off certain characteristics or traits that may be perceived as unattractive, which are confidence, arrogance, ego, and those type of things, right? Because feeling a fraud is like I'm not, or self-worth, right? So it's obviously feeling like a fraud is connected to your self-worth, self-esteem. But then if you're feeling overconfident, can come across as arrogance, and balancing all of these things. And like I said, the reason I brought it up, I was listening to a podcast, and this is a great podcast called The Diary of a CEO by Steve Bartlett, and he gets really deep, but he shared an experience where he feels like a fraud here and there. He's been touring the UK, he's a 25-year-old entrepreneur who's had some success, and he talks about being a fraud, and then he even referred to one of his good friends who's a billionaire who also feels like a fraud, who you wouldn't come across. And I felt like this as well. Recently I was interviewed, I did this interview for a international kind of conference, and I thought about speaking and sharing my story, and I'm like, but who am I to share this story? Who the hell am I, and why would anyone even listen to me, and why should I even share this? And these are feelings and talks that I'm sure we've all had here and there. So I quickly just Googled, because I'm really unprepared for this, but it does look like I'm really prepared, but I'm not. I printed a page, and this is from Wikipedia. I just Googled imposter syndrome.
Definitely not prepared.
Yeah. And
Hey, Wikipedia's legit.
They've been
it
hit me
is.
up for donations too. Did you guys get hit up for donations on Wikipedia?
yeah, did I get cancelled and then printed it? So this is just the intro paragraph. I'll quickly read it out. Apparently, it is actually, I don't know,
Condition.
Physiological?
I can't even say it. Too much champagne and I'm tired.
Champagne.
Anyway, imposter
It's fun to
syndrome.
say,
Be
isn't it?
quiet, you fraud.
Yes, I can't even speak the English language.
The English can't speak the English language.
Imposter syndrome, also known as imposter phenomenon or fraud syndrome or the imposter experience, is a concept describing individuals who are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. The term was coined in 1978 by a clinical psychologist, Pauline Clance and Susan A. Imes, not that matters what does. Despite external evidence of their competence, those exhibiting the syndrome remain convinced they are frauds and do not deserve the success they've achieved. Proof of success is dismissed as luck, timing, or as a result of deceiving others into thinking they are more intelligent and competent than they believe themselves to be. While earlier research focused on the prevalence among high-achieving women, imposter syndrome has been found to affect both men and women in roughly equal numbers. That's an interesting last sentence. But so it's just I guess, and that was, I actually hadn't even read this, but the fact of like proof of success is dismissed as luck and or timing and a result of deceiving others.
I think that's critical, right? I
It's
think we all
interesting.
know someone who's put achieving something down to luck or timing, as opposed to here we go. Even you, when you went to go and visit Gary Vee,
Yes.
yeah, you put it out. What did I say to you? Luck doesn't exist.
Yep.
You created an opportunity.
We did. Yeah, we did create it.
Mm.
But I felt like a bit of an imposter asking the question on the day. But
Yeah, and so I guess, I don't know, the question is like, have you ever felt like an imposter or a fraud? And what are some potential ways that we could overcome that, moving forward? Obviously, I think it's very normal.
I think,
yeah.
like, my view on that is, if you're not feeling like an imposter in at least some degree, then you're probably not challenging yourself.
You're probably
and
not learning
you've
anything,
got to
are
a
you?
point where you're too comfortable. I mean,
Well, you have
I
to be.
feel-
The way that the world gets promoted into different roles, right? You're always getting promoted into a job you're not competent in.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're always going to be challenged to be an imposter until you become proficient in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like so. I think, but I sort of seek to feel that, even though it's not comfortable.
You seek to feel
I think
like an
that
imposter.
this is very different. I
Yeah.
think this imposter, because it's more of a
Psychological.
it's more of you're really questioning yourself in a really deep emotional way, saying you're not good enough, not challenging yourself to learn something. I think there's different
I think this is about more the acknowledgement piece, right? It's
acknowledgement of.
of how and why you have created that situation, or how and why you have achieved that thing.
No, it's more just feeling like you don't deserve to be where you are, which is a bit different. It's a slightly different feeling than sort of challenging yourself to it.
Well,
I think maybe
but
that's
I
the
think
balance
if you are
of it, I don't
challenging
know.
yourself, then you're going to be step further forward than what you're qualified or currently your experience suggests you've done before. So you'll always feel a little bit of an imposter in a sense because you're pushing yourself beyond that. Whether you're starting a podcast or whether
Yeah.
you're starting a company or whether you're walking on a basketball court for the
I
first
think
time.
these
you've
are
got-
ways of challenging that and getting through that. But I think this is an emotional thing that you
I
begin
think-
at.
Yeah, because so in that aspect, like if I take from my experience where
So just clarify this. So I just read further onto that. thing.
Sure.
It's not a mental disorder.
No, so, sorry,
Yeah.
it's not it's not classified as a mental disorder or a, even though it's been studied quite a lot,
Yeah.
which is I only found out 5 minutes before this, which is interesting. It's not a mental disorder, but like I have for example, my business, I had achieved things, and people were like, "Oh, you must be so proud." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess so." And like, I don't feel like I had really achieved anything or whatever. And then, and I still kind of don't, but I still have the belief that if everything failed and moving forward, like challenging myself, I still have the belief. I don't feel like a fraud in pushing, but I feel like a fraud in that people are like, "Oh, you're so successful," and I'm like, "No," like
because
I'm
that's
not.
when you've got your eyes in front. Because you've stepped beyond your status quo.
Yes.
And so you're looking up there. So you're like, no, I haven't achieved this. I'm out there in front, hence why I don't
Sure.
feel like I've accepted and
What I'm
achieved
talking
it.
about. You know, like that's where I feel like a fraud is
So,
more
yeah.
of in that experience, in that
Okay.
moment, as opposed to.
Again, I'll bring it back to the fact from the piece that you read that I read. It's a lack of acknowledgement of the work that you've done as playing a part in the achievement you have.
I think a huge part of it is looking at other people that are maybe in your industry or people you see more that you deem as more successful. That's a big part of it. So that's looking at somebody going, they're more successful, they're better looking, they're obviously richer, they've got a better car. Then
At least on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Rolex and stuff. But then that bounces back on you
Yeah.
and hits you in the heart. Like, oh, I'm questioning myself. I'm not as good as that person. I think that's where I think imposter syndrome comes from, because you're comparing yourself to somebody else, which you should never do, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm quite similar to you, Justin, in that I was thinking, oh, maybe this is something that applies to me, until it got to the point of, I don't know why I reacted so strongly against it, as being exposed as a fraud.
I don't think that's what it is, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Worried
so
about
It's
being
feeling that you don't deserve.
Well, okay, so very, very recent example, I had my end of year performance review, the 2 conversations you have a year in the corporate world. But, yeah.
What's the first conversation?
So it's a mid-year
What's the
performance
Christmas party?
review, right? So,
It just made me waste a taste of champagne. Champagne.
champagne. And on it, so during it, I was going through the same thought that I generally have, is that like genuinely questioning why these people have such a belief in the perceived capacity that they have for me, right? So that's where I was linking to that, and even I bring it back to the 7 a.m. Brekkie Club. Sometimes I feel genuinely that you guys overplay what I've done, like what I'm doing and where my head's at.
Yeah, you
And I think
are an
that's
imposter,
the-
man. You
Yeah.
set the argo, Bruce.
Exactly. I'm
Jesus
whatever
Christ.
you want to be, right? But so that I'm with you to that point. But the fraud thing, I don't know, because then...
Because the other reason I brought it up as well was actually part of the conversation we had, which is the opportunity you have at the moment. You're like, who am I to apply that?
Yeah.
You feel like a fraud,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. This is good.
This is
real.
This is why I brought it up, because like the conversation...
We're at 46 minutes and we get real.
The interview that I had, I felt like a fraud. And like, why, again, I felt like this was... I wanted to bring it up because... Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like from an outsider, the reason that you don't take that opportunity is you feel like a fraud of like, who am I to have that opportunity or go for it, right?
It happens a lot in the creative industries,
Yeah.
The creative industries are very because you're putting stuff out there, something creative that you've done.
And we all
That's
know
where-
here, we all turned around and said we all had the belief in you, but prior to that, you didn't have. You felt like a fraud in applying for that. Is that
Well,
true
I would
or no?
still feel like a fraud applying for it because I don't have the technical. I would be fucking winging it, right?
Yeah.
So like, I believe in my winging it, but it's kind of like I want to give myself the like I want to
Experience.
hedge my bets and be like, guys,
Sure.
you realize you're taking a really big bet on
Yeah.
it, yeah?
So how would we? How do you overcome that? And how do you
Great
think
things
you
to
might
big
overcome
bets,
that?
mate.
Yeah, well,
Or you
it was
just-
the one about one believing that that's what you're gonna become. So
Yeah.
just act in that way. You think, therefore you
Yeah.
are. Style kind of thought.
The kind of
One.
subtle art of not giving a fuck sort of
Yeah,
situation.
that's another
What
one.
have you got
Yeah.
to lose, but?
No, that's the other thing, right? That's another thing, and then also just having you guys around me be like, putting those thoughts back into my head, right?
And that Jess walks into your life
Yeah.
and the opportunity
She,
comes.
she might be
Wow.
listening to this at some point.
I didn't put a surname in
Some
there.
static.
I didn't put a surname in there. There's no surname.
Yeah.
Okay, the J person. And gives the opportunity. I think that is just crazy. That's the
Yeah.
part I'm stuck on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back to the alchemy.
Anyway,
Yeah, just
connected. But yeah, I mean, does anyone else want to share moments of and can it be overcome? Can it just one of those things where you learn to
Well, how about this as an example? We're doing a podcast.
This is
number
an
2 on
example.
this.
Yeah, true.
That's again
How
like what
long has everyone wanted to do something like this for?
Yeah, and I do feel like an imposter right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like, what gives us the right to pontificate about any of this crap? Because, like, what do we know? Nothing, really.
Who's pontificating?
Well, just fucking. I picked a word that sounds fancy.
You just pontificated over the desk. What do you say?
Okay, what's the time we got there? 48 minutes. Guys, let's wrap this
Yeah,
up.
so we're a bit over 48 as well.
Let's wrap this up. Any final words?
Well, is there something to be played around humility with the imposter syndrome?
Well,
right?
that's why I wanted to have that conversation as well, and Conrad and I, we talked about this yesterday as well, is like that element of like being confident in what you do, acknowledging your successes and going, yeah, that was a success, but how do you balance that with, humility, and those other things, like as I said, that society, and it's I guess an element of not giving a fuck, right, of what others think about. But like Matt, you've started to become more sharing your thoughts through social media and stuff like that. That I'm sure, and still now there's elements of like, who the fuck am I to do that? And so and is that just the confidence of going fuck it, self-belief and self-esteem, and really at the end of the day, is it simply like the quote that we just discussed,
Cleaner, closer, cooler.
coming back internally,
That's a new podcast.
your responsibility.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, don't go there, man. It's not another hour.
I think
That's
the way,
really sweet.
maybe to close that bit out, is
Yeah.
that as long as you're coming back to a real why that you believe in, then you go about it in the best way that you believe. Yeah?
Because that's the only way you'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll
I
give up.
like it.
So
Okay.
Do you have to
Let's
point
go,
it back
guys.
to a core purpose?
Purpose, why?
And try and keep the ego out of it as well, because you talked at the beginning about people that try and put on a show. And I think that's people are really suffering from that sort of imposter syndrome. Have this big show as well. There's like this really extreme. People like, this is your Rolexes, your Ferraris, your money, that sort of stuff. These people are hiding a really deep imposter syndrome.
Alright, lads. Another great chat. Thanks for your time.
Catch you next week.
See you next week.
Champagne.
Shall be fun.